So, again, as you know, the papers were received by my mother back in 1978, and I got them in 79. And when I came up to Vancouver to get them, she pulled them out from under the couch, and the one on top was Chief Festival of the Druids, and the second one was the Gaelcerth Bonfire at Halloween. Yep, you guessed it. When's my birthday? Halloween. So, by that time when that happened, my hands were shaking because 5 days earlier, I'm told by some ancient being and also by being intuitively stoned hard, saying, you got to study the Druids, and all of a sudden here I am with these papers. So I want to read some of it. As with the Chief Festival of the Druids, I also published the Gaelcerth Bonfire at Halloween here, and the illuminations inside are by a bit of a story in the beginning of the papers, and the illuminations are by Leo de Pasqua, who, and again I'll show you these the larger illuminations here. Here I've got the original coloring of the parchment paper, and it was a 4-page document. It's called the Gaelcerth Bonfire at Halloween. So, and the illustrations there. Now, a little bit here, Aberdaron up in north. We visited, I spent a lot of time in North Wales, and Aberdaron is one of the places. So, let me read a little bit of this, the Gaelcerth Bonfire at Halloween. One of those ceremonies that has survived since the time of the Druids and is yet kept in Wales on the 11th of November every year, or at least they were observed that during the time I was in that country, from 34 to 40. I took part in the ceremonies, and I'm told that they are yet in 1888 kept up. For a week before the time, it is a busy time, with the children and some old people to gather materials for the bonfire, which is lighted at sunset, Old Style 11th mostly. Anciently, every house in the neighborhood put out their fires so that they may be relighted from the Gaelcerth. But in my time, but few of the old families did this. A description of the last I attended there in 1840, with some slight local variations, will answer for all of them. It was Wednesday, the 11th of November, 1840. The moon yet looked full, 17 days old. The sun set about 4:30. When I lit the bonfire, it was my right to do so because I had gathered the greatest amount of materials for it. The master of ceremonies that night was a stranger to me, a very old man who sat near the fire until the signs told him the time to sound the trumpet. The sign of the bear was low in the north, the prime or the first star upper of the chair of Cassiopeia on the zenith. Orion and the Pleiades in the east, and the Triad or triad stars of the Druids, and we heard that it was Aldebaran, or Antares, the star of the Druids in the other paper. So the triad or the triad stars of the Druids in the west, with the Milky Way nearly from east to west. Then the old man slowly arose and handed me the trumpet, which I sounded, keeping time with the motions or signs he made. I'd done this before. While thus engaged, there was a great commotion among the large crowd. The Queen of the Fairies was approaching. She was dressed so fantastically that her best friend could not have known her. At her first approach, a large ring was formed, into which the queen marched with a number of her subjects. The master of ceremonies approached the ring and conversed with the queen. In some language that none of the crowd understood. Among the subjects of the queen, next to her person, was her 3 guardians, one in green, one in blue, and one in white. Next to them were 3 more dressed in black, and after them 3 more in all the colors of the rainbow. Nice vision. After them followed a deer, dragon, and a dog. These kept moving between the outer and inner rings, directed by the last 3 guards. On a signal from the master of ceremonies, I again sounded the assembly. Each of the first guards carried a wand about a yard and a half long. It was planted in the ground perpendicular, and another fastened as a cross horizontal. With a 3rd rod, they measured the inner ring. This was done by one in green, and the measure he told to the one in white. While this one entered into a book of stones, thin slate, the one in blue made observation on the lines of the cross, and the stars, and therein also were entered in the book. The words were hollow. The wands were hollow.
Where's the drum?
Great. Good for you. Great. Thank you. The wands were hollow, acting as telescopes. The dates also were entered, and the name of all that were privileged to enter the inner ring to be presented to the queen. This was done by the means of a password. Their password is so peculiar that it requires to be given in such a way as that no writing can alone explain it. Owing to this peculiar password, it happened that I was the first to be presented to the queen. After had entered and Gaelcerth order was proclaimed, the master of ceremonies delivered the most remarkable address. It was delivered in Welsh, which in English is as follows. Let the sound be mournful and low, like the song of the tomb, such as Mazarath heard when the crowded sighs of the brothers rose. Some of my sons are low, said the grey-haired king of Morland. I hear the sound of death on Morland shore. Sons of Osirian, touch the trembling string. Bid the sword and sorrow rise from the earth as the mist of the summer's morning, that the spirits of my heroes may fly with joy to Nirvan's sacred circle. Touch to the lyre, soft and low. Bend forwards from your clouds, he said, ghosts of my father's bend. Lay by the red terror of your course. Receive the spirits that seek for succor. Let her meteorite light its path. Whether he comes from a distant land or rise from the rolling sea, let his robe of mist be near. Let the spears of the clouds guard him, and may he appear beside the Gaelcerth, that he may receive the nectar of the dead and live forever, that his countenance may be lovely, and his friends may delight in his presence. Bend from your clouds, he said, guests of my father's bend. Throw essence on the sacred fire, that the perfume may fly upwards with the voice of praise from the sacred circles. Let the trumpet sound. Shout, ye sons of Crick. Strike as of yore the ancient harp. Let your words be the prize of heroes, whose deeds are noble, whose swords were sharp, when called to defend the Queen of Innos. This is this English translation of this Old Cornish a Welsh song on the Gaelcerth. There's more to it, but that's the dramatic part. Again, as I did with the other one, I wanted to show you what Leo did. I showed a bit of the illuminations there, but this is the Gaelcerth or Bonfire Halloween in large format. So it's just amazing. I was so struck by Leo's work. What happened was we were working together at an antique. I was helping to manage this large antique market in Toronto, and Leo and his friend had a religious store there, selling religious paraphernalia, and I showed him the papers. He was very excited. He's a very spiritual person himself, and so I asked him. He said that he did illumination, so I asked him if he'd do one page, and I was so struck at how fantastic it was. I just said, "Well, go ahead." And so I ended up, I think it was $100 for each double page, each page, and I had a lot to make. Anyways, I have 4 different papers done, and this is one of the more dynamic ones. Here's this poem that I just read, and right, the double page coming up here. Just incredible work. I was fascinated by it. So yeah, it goes on. I think this one ends quite dramatically too at the end, doesn't it? No, it's not. It's just a rare Merlin here. Lovely little, very Islandish or Celtic design in the corners here. So, Gaelcerth of Bonfire, Halloween. My birthday, not the November 11th, but mine's October 31st, but because the calendar was moved there many centuries ago, they go by the old record, the 11th of November.